At sunset, she was a bride, a lily-white dove offered to seal a fragile peace. By sunrise, she was a ghost the kingdom never dared to name. She was Princess Ilara, the youngest daughter of the Valerius dynasty, a realm built on granite mountains and iron will. Her laughter was said to be the only thing that could make the sternest guardsman smile, a melody of innocence in a court of stone-faced schemers. With hair like spun moonlight and eyes the color of a summer sky, she was more than just a princess. She was a symbol of hope, a living promise of an end to the generation-spanning conflict known as the 100-Year War. Her life had been a sheltered one, a carefully curated existence within the castle walls, where the only battles she witnessed were those played out on a chessboard. She was taught the gentle arts calligraphy, music, and embroidery, while her brothers learned the brutal craft of war. Ilara was the kingdom's most precious bloom, nurtured not for power, but for sacrifice. Her purpose, she was told, was not to rule, but to unite, and her union would be the keystone in an arch of peace, bridging the chasm between her own people and the formidable Draconian Empire, a nation forged in volcanic fire and shadow. The wedding was conceived in a war tent, a desperate gambit to staunch the bleeding of two great empires. For a century, the houses of Valerius and Draken had drenched the soil in the blood of their sons. Now, weary and depleted, they sought a different kind of alliance. The marriage of Princess Ilara to Prince Kalen of the Draconian Empire was to be the final chapter in their bloody history, a sacrament of peace witnessed by gods and men. The capital city was transformed into a spectacle of forced unity. Banners of the Valerian Silver Eagle flew beside the Crimson Dragon of Draken, two mortal enemies now entwined on silken flags that snapped restlessly in the wind. The streets, usually patrolled by grim-faced soldiers, were strewn with flowers, their vibrant petals a stark contrast to the cold, watchful eyes of the Draconian delegation. The grand celebration was a masterpiece of political theater, a feast designed to mask the bitter taste of surrender and suspicion that lingered on every tongue. Beneath the veneer of jubilant festivities, a silent tension coiled like a serpent. The grand hall, filled with the music of lutes and the clinking of goblets, was a battlefield of glances. Valeria Nobles, their faces masks of strained courtesy, watched the Draconian lords, whose dark, intimidating armor seemed to absorb the candlelight rather than reflect it. Every shared toast felt like a challenge, every polite nod a thinly veiled threat. The air was thick with the ghosts of past grievances, the unmentioned dead who lay in fields between their two lands. Princess Ilara, radiant in a gown of woven starlight, moved through the throng like a dream, her smile a fragile beacon in the oppressive atmosphere. She met the gaze of her new husband, Prince Kalen, a man whose reputation was as harsh and unforgiving as the northern lands he hailed from. His eyes held a storm she could not decipher, an unnerving mix of duty and darkness. The celebration was not a joining of hearts, but a careful, choreographed dance on a knife's edge, where a single misstep could shatter the illusion of peace and reignite the flames of war. The procession to the bridal chamber was a somber affair, the joyous music of the feast fading into a heavy, expectant silence. The long corridor was lined with guards from both kingdoms, their stony faces betraying nothing. As the heavy oak doors closed behind the newlyweds, the celebration officially ended and the true test began. For Princess Ilara, the wedding night was not a romantic culmination, but the ultimate test of her indoctrinated duty. She was not just a bride, she was an envoy in the most intimate of diplomatic missions. Her every action, every word, would be scrutinized, reported back, and interpreted as a sign of Valerius's true intentions. For Prince Caelan, she was the embodiment of a truce he had publicly endorsed but privately questioned. His loyalty was to his empire, and this fragile princess was either the key to its security or a Trojan horse sent to dismantle it from within. The flickering candlelight in their chamber cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, spectres of fear and distrust that loomed over the ornate bed. The silence that fell between them was not one of passion, but of profound and terrifying uncertainty. It was a night where loyalty was a currency and fear was the air they breathed. Dawn broke with a chilling stillness. The customary morning salute to the royal couple never came. Instead, a silent dread crept through the castle corridors as the sun's first rays illuminated a scene of unimaginable horror. A chambermaid, entering with the morning meal, let out a single, piercing shriek that shattered the morning calm. Princess Elara was found lying in the center of the vast, immaculate bed, her bridal gown as pristine as the night before. Her hands were folded peacefully over her chest, her expression serene, as if she were merely asleep. But her skin was as cold as marble, and her chest held no breath. There were no signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no bruises on her delicate skin. The room was unnervingly orderly. The only disturbance, the faint, sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine that seemed too strong, too cloying. Prince Caelan was gone. The only thing left to mark his presence was the draconian royal seal, pressed into a pool of hardened wax on the bedside table. The silence in the room was absolute, a void where a life had been just hours before, leaving behind only a beautiful, lifeless doll. The castle became a pressure cooker of whispered accusations. Within hours, the news had slithered through the court like a poison, each retelling, twisting the facts into more sinister shapes. Was it poison? A rare, untraceable concoction slipped into her wine, a final, treacherous act from the draconian prince who had vanished into the morning mist. Or was it betrayal from within her own court? Perhaps a Valerian noble, unwilling to accept peace with their ancient enemy, had sacrificed their own princess to ensure the war would continue, framing the Draconians for the heinous act. The most chilling rumor, however, was the one spoken only in the darkest corners, in hushed, terrified tones. Some whispered it was a royal sacrifice, a dark ritual agreed upon by both sides, that her death was not an unforeseen tragedy, but the true price of peace. Her pure blood used to seal a pact far darker than any marriage vow. The questions swirled like vultures, with no answers to be found. Her death had not brought peace. It had planted the seeds of a new, more insidious conflict, one fought not with swords, but with suspicion and lies. The fragile truce was broken before it had even truly begun, shattered by the silent death of its most important symbol. In the end, no official cause of death was ever declared. The royal chroniclers, tasked with recording the history of the realm, were given a stark directive. The pages detailing the wedding, the celebration, and the events of that night were to be left blank. Any scrolls or records mentioning Princess Ilara's marriage were quietly removed from the archives and burned. Her portraits were taken down from the castle walls, her name excised from the royal lineage. It was as if she had never existed. To speak of the princess who died on her wedding night became an act of treason, a forbidden topic punishable by the harshest sentences. Her death was not recorded as a historical event, but buried as a state secret, a shameful, unexplainable scar on the honor of two empires. She became a phantom in the annals of history, a ghost story told by nursemaids to frighten children. A nameless bride whose tragic fate served as a grim reminder that in the Games of Thrones, even the most innocent pawn can be sacrificed without a second thought. At sunset, she was a bride, a symbol of hope for a lasting peace. By sunrise, she was a ghost the kingdom never dared to name.